Welcome back, people of the internet, to the 4th Junkworld Devlog. And before we get started, I've been getting a lot of comments about the name Junkworld and it being already another game. I know, it's just a working title, so we'll have to come up with a new name eventually, but that will happen when we get into the story side of things. With that out of the way, in the previous devlog I dropped my first playable prototype demo thing to really test out the character controls and get a feel for the platforming. And I thought in this video I'd go over that prototype, what I had to do to make it, and most importantly, what people thought of it. And before we get started with that, I would really from the bottom of my heart like to thank everyone who took the time to play and test the prototype and give their feedback. With your help, Junkworld will definitely become the best game possible. So, thank you. In the previous devlog, I worked on my character controller and added some well-needed features like double jumping, dashing, wall sliding, and wall jumping. And when you're making a platformer, nothing is as important as the feeling of your character, so making sure this is the case is very, very important. As I said in the previous devlog, you are your own worst playtester. You know how everything works, and even worse, you know how everything is supposed to work. It often is really hard for devs to break their game. And so I figured I'd need the help of you guys, the players, even at this very, very early stage where it's just a character being able to move. It's important, and yes, also very, very scary, to put something out there as soon as possible. As I've learned over the years of game dev, it's never too soon to test. And that's why I decided to put together a demo. However, an empty floor with a character wouldn't really cut it. It basically has nothing to do with actual platforming, and it wouldn't show anyone how it would feel to platform with Carly. And so I made a very small and basic level, which looks random, but bear with me, there's actually some science behind it. I divided it in 3 main areas in which I thought players would be able to get a sense of all the controls. I made a starting area, an area to test platforming towards the camera, and finally a climbing section. The starting area was just that, an area to start, but I designed it in such a way that in order to get around, a player would have to use all the basic controls. Movement, check. Getting across the gap. Jumping, check. A block. Double jump, check. Larger gap. That's right. Double jump again. An even larger gap? Wait. That's right. Dash. Check. And this would bring the player to the most infamous section of the demo, the part where you platform towards the camera. Alright, I can practically hear you all screaming down below in the comments. I am apparently the only person alive who likes a static camera platformer. Sue me. But make sure to let me know in the comments down below what you think about this. And while we're at it, if you haven't already, double jump on that subscribe button as it really helps the channel out. And if you like this video so far, give it a like. After missing some platforms and jumps, players would then make their way to the climbing section where they would learn and have to use wall climbing and wall jumping to make their way up a large platform. After that, I filled the rest of the level with some more of the same and called it a day. I then spent a good 2 evenings getting a feel for how far apart all the platforms needed to be and what would be the best flow. But after that, I really felt I had a good level which would cover all the basics and leave the player some experimentation with the controls. Awesome! Time to build and get the show on the road, right? Yeah, this is where things snowballed a little bit out of control. I figured to make the players actually platform and not just walk around, I'd made the water acidic swamp water, which would kill Carly. But that also meant I had to make a script which could deal damage over time to Carly if she's in a specific area. But if you're able to die, then you would also need to be able to respawn. So why not add some simple checkpoints and a respawning system which would return Carly to full health and place her at the location of the last active checkpoint. Alright, with that sorted, we're good to go, right? Turns out, you can't really ask players to hard reset their PC just to quit your stupid prototype. To fix it, I added a pause menu with an exit button. And while I was at it, I also made a Google form for feedback and added a link to it in the menu as well. Okay, we're done, right? I believe what makes a game is having a goal. And I am making a distinction here between play and a game. And I completely brought this upon myself, but I decided to add a checkpoint race. When players eventually made it to the top of the mountain, they would have shown to be masters of the controls, and I wanted to give them another challenge. After touching the first checkpoint, 3 other checkpoints would be revealed in the level and a timer would start. The player then needed to touch every checkpoint as fast as possible. By revisiting the top of the mountain, players could start over and try to beat their own time. Don't get me wrong though, it was not a completely random feature. By giving the players the goal to hunt for checkpoints on a time limit would hopefully make them push the controls to their absolute limits and find ways to combo and use the controls as efficiently as possible. And secondly, by making the demo an actual game and giving the players the ability to best their own times and to keep improving, I had hoped they would spend more time in it and actually test the game even better than they would if it was just a sandbox. So we're shipping now, right? I always play with a gamepad, but as my questionnaire has shown, about as much players played it with a keyboard, and so I had to add some keyboard controls. Luckily, Unity's new input system made it fairly easy to add keyboard bindings, but as I mentioned earlier, I am not a keyboard user and playing games feels really awkward with a keyboard. And I still don't know what an optimal control scheme for keyboard platforming would even be. Nevertheless, the game was now playable with both a keyboard and a gamepad. But how would people know which button to press? We could just add an image to the itch page. We'll be fine, right? And so I added another feature, which would, when a player needed it, show the proper gamepad controls on screen. Sadly, I totally forgot to change this when you didn't have a gamepad connected. And then I finally had a final polished demo prototype thing, which, by the way, if you would like to give it a try and give your feedback on it, you still can. I'll put a link to it down in the description below. And by now you might be thinking, well, as I said before, about as much people played the demo with a keyboard as with a gamepad, and I think the feedback is best summed up by this pie chart. A lot of the feedback had to do with the keyboard controls being weird and a little off. I had mapped movement to the arrow keys and not to WASD, which seemed to be what most people expected, which made it difficult to play. And since this whole demo was about controls and how the controls felt, most people playing the demo with the keyboard felt it could definitely be improved. Another thing which came up often was wall sliding and jumping. Players felt it was a little bit unnatural and often had difficulty getting into the wall slides, which I think was due to the choice I made that you would have to hold down jump to lock onto a wall. And something that surprised me the most, there were only 1 or 2 comments about the static camera. And I was also very lucky to get a lot of positive feedback. Players really seemed to enjoy the snappiness and the responsiveness of the controls and really liked how the jump and double jump felt. In the end, well over 70% of the players who provided me with feedback stated that they would play a game with a character controlling like this, which in my book is a win for the demo and shows me that I am on the right track. And of course, things will most certainly change and be tweaked, but nevertheless, this is a great and especially motivating start. I think I'll end the video here. In the next video, we'll take a look at the things that I already changed to the character controller after I received all that feedback. And if you made it this far into the video, don't forget to give it a like. And if you haven't already, double jump on that subscribe button. Talking about subscribers, we're about to hit 1,000 subs on the channel, which is amazing. So if you have any good ideas on how to celebrate, make sure to leave a comment down below. As always, thanks for watching and hope to see you in the next one.